I'm going to read an extract from my first novel, That Existential Leap, a crime story. It's not so much a manifesto for freedom as an exploration of its deeper challenges. The hero, Siegfried, has embezzled money from his employer back in Scotland and fled to New York to begin a new life of existential freedom from unchosen commitments, obligations, or rules of any kind, including the law. Siegfried arrived in New York in the middle of the day without a particular plan. Instead, he had a vague ambition with no precedent that he was aware of. Unlike Vito Corleone, the Italian immigrant protagonist of the Godfather movies, he had nowhere to go, no community to bed into, no script to follow, nobody to take care of, nothing to live up to. Having cleared passport control and customs after arousing some suspicion, he had literally brought no baggage. He was hit by a kind of vertigo and hovered aimlessly at the exit. In desperation, he went to the toilet, and after evacuating his bowels, frantically destroyed his passport. Then, with a renewed sense of purpose, no more than a sense though, he went outside and got into a taxi. Little Italy, after all, was the first thing to come into his head. It was while sitting in a coffee place somewhere near Hester Street that Siegfried was struck by the awesome magnitude of the task ahead of him. He had made the leap, partied with capital R reality, and now he had to work things out for himself. He had no idea what that meant. A lesser man might have fallen back on tourism, taking comfort in the attractions of the city and avoiding the issue, or perhaps gone to see a movie, The Godfather. Siegfried took a sip of his powerful espresso and frowned manfully. He thought of asking the waiter if the honoured society, La Cosa Nostra, were looking for people with computer experience. Then he imagined what his conventionally minded old friend Tommy would have thought of that idea, and laughed out loud, attracting a disapproving glance from said waiter. He was suddenly acutely conscious that organised crime was much more embedded in exclusive ties and allegiances than the commercial world he had fled. Siegfried was anonymous, nobody. The cafe was not as he'd imagined, less Italian, more generically American and modern, and yet somehow it seemed more authentic for being imperfectly so. Siegfried resolved to go for a walk. He wandered through Chinatown, which now occupied many of the streets he'd learned from movies comprised Little Italy, willing only slightly, and not showing it at all. He had always known, he supposed, that it would be like this. It was not enough simply to show up at a place, truly to be there, because to be there implied reasons, expectations, of others as well as oneself. If he felt alienated from his surroundings, it was because he was an alien. He had chosen New York very deliberately, and yet without having to think about it, because of what it symbolized. Freedom, a new start, a new life, hope. But such things could never be the qualities of the city itself. They were for its citizens, however newly arrived. Siegfried was no more a citizen of New York than a backpacker is a citizen of Thailand. It was not his legal status that kept him out, but neither was the barrier cultural. Simply, he had no business in New York. Siegfried's sudden disturbance was not merely mental. He lost his stride, stumbled, slowed down, stopped. He was free, free. The feeling that had come to him in the cafe returned with terrifying force. For he was in New York, free, a wonderful New York street scene, sidewalk bustle, yellow cabs, the sound of distant sirens over the ever-present traffic noise, and cut. Cut to what? Existential freedom does not come with a script. The rest was up to him.